my name is Angela Jacob Bermudo, and I'm a strategic communications, partnerships, and development consultant. And today, if you're in the right session, we'll be talking about designing a better common future. And as we think about designing a better common future, I'd like to invite all of you to imagine you could create a new world. What would it look like? How different is it from the world that we currently live in? You can think to yourself about these thoughts, or if you want, share it in the chat and I will read off a few. Okay, so it looks like we might have a little bit of a shy group, and that's totally okay. If you feel like sharing your ideas later on, feel free to drop it in the chat and we can discuss some of your really amazing ideas. In fact, before this session, I had a really nice chat with Bjorn from the UPPSTART team. And we talked about, you're right, Carl, it is a very big question. And we talked about some ideas, and he actually had a brilliant one. So again, we'd really love to hear your thoughts and feel free to share them. So I don't know if most of you know this, but this summer, SpaceX accomplished the first orbital space flight from American soil since NASA retired its space shuttle program in 2011. When we think about new worlds, we often think about exploring our galaxy, other planets, and we've spent billions, if not trillions, on research and development for space exploration. We explore new planets, stars, moons, we create new developments, and even think about colonizing other planets. And so who best to ask about space exploration than astronauts? And every single astronaut is asked when they come back to Earth, you know, what did they feel? What did they think when they looked back? And this is actually a phenomenon that has happened with many astronauts. There's something called the overview effect. And typically this happens when they accomplish their first space flight and look back at Earth. And this is what they say. You see one planet, one shared atmosphere, shared oceans, shared resources. It's our shared place in the universe. And it's in that moment when perspectives really shift. We realize we're all on this planet together, experiencing its past, living in its present, and sharing one common future. And speaking of the future, we are currently experiencing what we're calling the Great Reset. Not to be confused with the World Economic Forum's Great Reset, which is very much focused on economic development. No, this is an opportunity for an even greater redesign. We've been given a chance to reimagine the world in light of dire circumstances, COVID-19. I'm sure most of us are familiar with this. If not, you probably have been living under a rock. The world ground to a halt at one point with shutdowns, lockdowns, and now we're very much in a slow recovery. And during this recovery, many of us have had a chance to introspect, but also look at the world around us with fresh eyes. We're reconsidering how and who we spend our time with. We're seeing the effects of the world we had all been living in. It's almost like stopping the planet on its axis suddenly has made us all realize what was happening around us. But the thing is, these changes have been brewing since before COVID-19. The only thing this pandemic has really done is acted like an accelerant to a fire. And one of the things that we're seeing with these changes, as many of you have probably seen already, is that the use of immersive technologies to help us connect with each other and the world has increased. Virtual reality, augmented reality, etc. These are all technologies that before we didn't really see wide adoption for, and now we're looking at these. But the thing that we should understand about immersive technologies is really, it should be seen as a tool or a gateway. So how can we leverage immersive technologies and design thinking for good? Later on, I'm going to talk about 3 organizations that I work with that are actually doing just that. And so let's talk about design thinking. Feel free to comment in the chat, but I'm pretty sure that either a group of you have probably heard of design thinking or actively use this creative process yourselves. So what is design thinking? It's a human-centered creative problem-solving process. So lots of jargon there. What it really means is approaching design from the perspective of actually understanding the people you are designing for and designing for humans. And there are about 6 phases to design thinking that we can think about. These are not all linear. Some of these steps may happen several times in the actual process, or you might jump back and forth between them. When design thinking is done right, it helps us understand the mindsets and needs of the people we are creating for, which leads to better products, services, and internal processes, but also maybe a better world. And so the first organization that I want to talk to you about is called the Hydras. And at the Hydras, our mission is to create open access oceans. What does that mean, and why did we decide to do this? One of the things that we realize when it comes to ocean conservation and really understanding why our actions matter and why we need the oceans, or healthy oceans, is we realize that there are many people who don't actually have a relationship with the ocean, maybe have never seen it before, live in landlocked areas where they don't come into contact with it often, or because of a variety of reasons, including social, economic reasons, etc., may live near an ocean but have never engaged with it. The reality is only a select few people have the privilege to be able to really dive deep and see the beauty of the ocean. And so what we decided to do with the Hydras is find a way to bring the ocean to the people so that they can have a connection with it. So how do you do this? Do we get everybody dive certified and bring them underwater? That's very expensive. Also, many limitations to that. One of the ways that we realized that we could do was we could use immersive technology to have people experience this from anywhere, on their mobile phones, from their living rooms, dining rooms, what have you. And so we created Immerse, which has become an award-winning VR film. And it takes people through the beautiful waters of Palau with Dr. Erica Woolsey, the CEO and co-founder of the Hydras, as your dive guide. And so what you see here on the screen is our lovely manta ray QR code. And if you take your smartphone, open the camera app and point it towards the QR code, it'll actually allow you to open the YouTube app and bring you to where the Immerse film is currently hosted on the Nat Geo channel. If you have a VR device or maybe just a Google Cardboard, you can also experience this in its full glory and go diving. So I hope that after this talk that you will explore that and share a bit of the ocean. Another organization that I work with is the University of Oxford's X Reality Hub. And at the X Reality Hub, we really have this vision of creating the central nervous system for global research and mixed reality development in Europe. And so we work a lot with the award-winning academics and researchers within the university to develop solutions using immersive technologies, but also looking at the existing research that exists to see, will immersive technology actually help to better communicate the results of the findings that they have from their research, or can it actually help in the research process? And so a good example of this that I'd love to share with all of you is it's something very COVID relevant. So we worked with University College For those of you who might not be familiar, University College is one of the colleges at Oxford. And we created a VR app that brings you on a tour of the campus. But not only could you see University College in its present state, you could also see renderings of future buildings that they were looking to build. So aside from being an amazing immersive tour, this was actually used to reach out to potential donors. So alumni, foundations, individuals, etc. And it allowed them to feel like they were at the university. And so we sent out Google Cardboards and sent a link to the VR app, along with obviously the ask. And what we discovered is that not only did we accomplish being able to reach out to donors, but the reach was actually increased because there were so many people before we decided to utilize immersive technologies who had never actually been on campus or hadn't been on campus in years since graduating. Now they were able to experience it and share it with other people. And so they felt more of a connection to University College. The last organization I want to talk to you guys about is Envelop. And this is a little unique. When we think of immersive technologies, we often think about visual. But what's amazing is that you can accomplish a lot with just sound. And that's what's beautiful about listening. At Envelop, our mission is to unite people through communal listening experiences. And the way that we accomplished this was through a variety of different ways. Through our permanent locations in San Francisco, Salt Lake City, although Salt Lake City we had to close, unfortunately, because of COVID, but also a mobile pop-up system that allowed us to bring this experience anywhere in the world, as well as immersive audio workshops, which allowed us to really create new development of this type of content, as well as other kind of learning opportunities. During COVID-19, many events were canceled. In fact, we are now in a virtual experience because we could not have physical events. And so we had to think, what was a way that we could bring people together and still have them experience this shared experience virtually? And that is why we created Envelop Stream. So Envelop Stream is a variety of different kind of content tracks. We have a series called Sound, where we take audio recordings of different things, different places. Sometimes it's a full recreation or an idea of what something sounds like. For example, one of the images that you saw previously is an experience called Space. So we created an audio recreation of what it's like to be in space. Now, I'm going to connect 2 points here. If you remember earlier, we were talking about the limited few, the astronauts who have the ability to go out into space, who've had to train countless years and develop their expertise to have that privilege. But how could you understand something that you're never able to see or immerse yourself in? And so we created an experience that allows anybody to be able to experience sonically what it's like to be in space. And so the big question, what we're talking about, how do we build a more responsible future? How do we redesign it? Now, these are not all the ways that we can do so. These are just kind of some of the themes that we should be thinking about, some of the central points or that we should really align with when we're thinking of designing this future. So empathy, really talking to one another, understanding the needs of the people that we're looking to design for. Human-centered. Oftentimes when we look at technology, we sometimes get caught up with the idea of optimizing and making things better, that we often forget that we have to think about the implications of technology on our behavior, on our emotions, and our psychology, everything. So this is really a call for us to approach it from the human side first, rather than the technology side. Sustainability, obviously we have one planet. We've talked about space exploration, but the reality is we have to fix what's here first before we start to kind of think of a plan B, because there is no plan B. Collaborative. Oftentimes, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but decision-making is limited to a select few. We need to create more stakeholders, involve more of the community when we're designing a future. That way, we can all live in a future that we all want to exist in. And of course, accessibility. And accessibility is such a wide, really a wide range topic. It's access to information, understanding how our data is used and how our privacy is handled when we're on social media sites and other places on the internet. Accessibility to be able to share our thoughts and ideas with those who do make the decisions. And also designing for everyone. You know, oftentimes when we see design, it's built for kind of like this idea of what a person is with 10 fingers, 10 toes, etc. And so as we leave this conversation today, now I bring you back to the big question that we had at the start, which is, if you could redesign a world, how would you redesign it? What would you do differently? And I hope that some of these thoughts have actually helped to spark up some ideas, because what I would really love to see is really that increase in participation. We need more stakeholders. We need more people who are willing to share their ideas as to how we could redesign the future if we want to create a world that we all want to live in. Thank you. And now, if any of you want to throw any questions, I think we have a bit of time for some Q&A. So Carl, really thought there. Obviously, during COVID-19, we had a lot of people running to experience nature. And so that had to be limited based off of, you know, limiting the amount of contact that we had with each other and keeping distance. And it's interesting, you know, as an example, the Hydras, with how we brought the ocean to people, this is also like one of the things that we have to think about, like how can we still connect people with nature when we have to pretty much limit our contact with each other. Niles, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So like I said, I'm a consultant. So I work with these different organizations in different roles. So for the Hydras, I handle branding, communications, and partnerships. For Envelop, I handle our strategic partnerships, development, and marketing and communications. And with the University of Oxford, I handle marketing and communications. Oh, 100%. There's actually there's a lot of research out there in regards to the health benefits, Carl, with regards to us having contact with nature. And one such example on the ocean, on the note of the ocean, is there's this concept called the blue mind. And it actually shows that people have less stress, less anxiety when they are in or around a body of water. So it's definitely something that we think about often at the Hydras, because that's something that we're very much focused in, but also with Envelop. So I told you the example of space, but we've also actually created a spatial audio or immersive experience of what the Earth sounds like. And on Envelop Stream, which is our online experience, we have given people the opportunity to hear and experience this. And for many who either are unable to get out in nature for whatever reasons, or who are kind of missing what it's like to travel, it was such a great experience. And there were many people who live in the cities who perhaps, you know, can't go to the jungle. And this was really a journey through different, sort of different ecosystems. So, oh, amazing. So I want to read off, I think, moderators, if I'm over time here, just let me know. But I do want to read off some of the, if you guys haven't read them already, some of the ideas of how we, you know, how you would redesign the world. Jenny, you said it would be good good place to live for everyone and everything. And that's kind of what we were talking about, right? A common future where we all want to live in, that's designed for all of us. And Mark, you talked about a sustainable world where everyone has a choice of purpose-driven work. I have goosebumps from that statement because I myself have had to work very hard to be able to focus on these types of projects. It took a lot of sweat, time, sacrifice to be able to do more purpose-driven work. And people should be able to pursue it. It should really be flipped. I mean, I don't know if any of you agree, but I think that it could, some of us might feel like it should be flipped, that those who work in purpose-driven work should actually be able to benefit as much as those who work in, so to speak, the corporate world. Jenny, message me. I want to hear about what it is that you're working on, always collaborating. These are three very important organizations to me that I work with, but I work with a lot of other organizations as well, doing this type of work. So one last thing is probably at the beginning of next year, I will be launching a behavior experiment lab that's very much focused on getting people to think this way, getting people to reimagine the world. So if that sparks your interest, reach out, would love to connect.